When I was an atheist, I basically thought that the physical brain was really the creator of consciousness, and so if there is no, the brain's dead or offline, then basically is nothing. I actually became a medium and do readings for people. I know for certain that they exist elsewhere, even animals.
Welcome to the crossroads of the known and the unknown. This is AJ Parr's Spiritual Journalist Podcast.
Hello, I'm here with Ned Matinnia. He is a former board member of IANS, and he's also the founder of one of the largest NDE groups on Facebook. Hello, Ned. How are you?
Hi, I am excellent.
First, you were an atheist, and then you had several experiences with mediums. Did any of these experiences shock you or impress you?
They definitely impressed me because my grandfather, he died when I was, I think, 4 years old. And I only met him a handful of times because I grew up in California. He lived on the East Coast in New Jersey. So I only saw him a few Christmas times, and then it was it. And so, but apparently when I talked to multiple mediums out of a sense of curiosity, like I was like a scientist, I wanted to study them and see what can you tell me without any clues or hints, how does this all work? Is it even real at all? And then through multiple mediums, it was him who always started off, and he always had the same message of how much he loved me, even though I hardly knew him because he died when I was younger, and that he's watching over me even as I've kind of had a really chaotic childhood and a teenage years. And so and other evidence, but it did show me that there is something here and it's real.
What do you think about death now, and what did you think about death when you were an atheist?
When I was an atheist, I basically thought that the physical brain was really the creator of consciousness, and so if there is no, the brain's dead or offline, then basically there is nothing. And so I thought that there is no afterlife, there is no ultimate reason for being here other than we're just an accident. That's how I used to think as an atheist and materialist, a scientist. And now, knowing everything about the near-death experiences and also mediumship and having firsthand experiences, I actually became a medium. And I'll say this too: we all have intuition. I actually do readings for people, and I have friends who are mediums, and I know for certain that they exist elsewhere, even animals, because this isn't in mediumship. It's not just like you're trying to guess something like, oh, I think this person probably has this, so I'm going to say that. You open your mind as a blank slate, and it comes, and you just say it, and it's healing because it's seeing other people's lives and struggles even helps us to realize, to put ours into perspective, like, hey, I'm going through a hard day or a hard year, but so is everyone else. We all have our things, our challenges, and so it helps a sense of compassion and a sense of like we're not alone. And so I definitely know we continue on after this, and that we have a purpose here, and that it does matter how we treat each other. That's probably the most important thing. In 2012, it was a Labor Day weekend in Scottsdale, Arizona. I saw, like a few months before it, I saw a posting on the internet. It was about like a advertisement, and I was like, whoa, that's so interesting, because that's when I started learning about near-death experiences. And I was like, I have to go. And so I, eagerly bought the airplane ticket and I reserved the registration. And it was a beautiful time there. And I saw the speakers there and people. I think Eben Alexander, this was his first year that he published his book and basically came out with this whole story as a neurosurgeon with the experience. And then even I remember Danny and Brinkley was there, Mellon Thomas Benedict. I think he passed away in 2016, but at that time I met him and I remember we even had breakfast at the end of the conference. And he talks about the future and civilization. So I got to ask so many questions. He invented a device, and it uses a light therapy. And I mentioned that kind of as this random thing, but I know now it's become popular. If you Google red light therapy, and there are things about healing injuries, skin issues, but even more injuries and more deeper level healing it does on the skin. Anyway, he saw that in his experience when he had a brain cancer in 1982. So anyway, he was there. So shout out to Delane Deal. If she sees this, it's her birthday. I haven't seen her in years, but I used to, at the conferences, I would help out with the AV equipment, microphones and speakers. And Delane is always in charge of organizing everything and making sure everything happens in the conference rooms and the hotels. She puts a lot of energy and time into it, and it's her birthday. So happy birthday, Delane. You see this. I feel like IANDS, it feels like a family. It's like a family because when people have these experiences, one, they're often traumatic and life changing, but also the effects, like it opens up a person's heart, it opens up a person's intuition and empathy. And so when you meet experiencers who have been there and get it, like even though you never met at all, they actually see you and treat you as family, because it's that like compassionate, the God that's in all of us. It gets more unfiltered after experiences happen.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you got interested in near-death experiences?
Well, my interest started because I had been searching for answers, and I still am. But at that time, when I was in high school and younger, I had a traumatic childhood. I didn't have a lot of people or support that, a lot of people have their families, or they have friends who, if they're feeling down or struggling, they can lean on and support. And I didn't really have any of that. I didn't have the friends at school or a family which was healthy. So I was just alone. I felt alone every day. I felt depressed. I felt suicidal eventually. And that's when I was searching for a reason, why are we here? And I have a scientific mindset. I like to data. I like evidence. I like to understand how things work. And so I didn't take the religious path. I took a scientific path. And, because of what I learned in biology in high school, I thought that evolution explains everything, and that we're just a random accident here on Earth, and there isn't any soul or anything, any afterlife. And so that's when I thought about suicide. But it led me on a journey because I wanted to understand what do humans actually believe. So I looked at a world of religions. I took a course in college, and we learned about Christianity, and then Judaism, Islam, and then Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and some other all kinds of ideas. And I wanted to find the commonalities, like, is there anything that is solid in any of these, and what is it? And so eventually, after looking at those, I came across mediums who talk to people in spirit, and then I came across near-death experiences. And once I found the NDEs, I was like, this is the answer I'm looking for, and it gave me a reason, because they all said suicide is not recommended. We do have a purpose here. So I thought to myself, well, I guess even if I don't understand what my purpose is, I know I have one, so I will try my best. That's it in a nutshell.
I've heard you say that you study comparative religion. I think you mentioned it, that you took a course about different religions, and you kind of found certain commonalities. Can you tell me about that?
Almost every religion talks about the concept of karma, or the golden rule, or other ways of saying it, but just the fundamental idea that if you hurt someone else, you basically hurt yourself. And so it's almost like other people, what we do to other people, it comes to us. And so in Hinduism, it's often referred to as karma, or other places, the golden rule. And almost every religion has that. And they talk about how God is really beyond words. Like I think in Judaism, you have to write G and then a hyphen D, because it's sacred. You can't actually say the word. And you see that in other religions also, is that they say it's ineffable. It's beyond any container, any concept. It's just beyond. And you see that even in the ancient Indian Vedas and Upanishads, like they talk about how there is a higher power, and it's beyond any words or imagination. And they also talk about, well, some of the ones, Eastern religions, also they talk about other lifetimes. I think it could be Hinduism and or Buddhism that talk about the wheel of lifetimes, and then the moksha of leaving that. In Christianity, I think I heard that reincarnation used to be a part of Christianity until early, I think, a 2nd century or something, at the Council of Nicaea, and then the elders all voted to remove any references of that.
Yeah, but that's really interesting too. I've also found a lot of commonalities between the religions, and also between near-death experiences, because what you said about karma, about the golden rule, is also part of the message that people come back with, when they have their life reviews, and when they have this transformation. All along you had this Facebook group, right?
Well, and so I started it in September 15th of 2013, and now it has 188,000 members. There are other groups which are more even general, just about the afterlife, that are over 500,000, or some groups that could have a million people, but they aren't focused in terms of, I keep it focused on NDEs, because there are so many spirituality groups that are just in general, and they post inspirational quotes or videos or images, which are beautiful, but I want my group to kind of have a focus, and I want it to be a quality over quantity.
Also, you have in your rules, you mentioned something about suicide. And since you were inclined to suicide when you were young, what are your present thoughts about suicide, and what is that norm that you have in the group regarding suicide?
The rule I have in there is just about keeping, for one, the practical aspect of, being on Facebook. Facebook has its own rules about all that, suicide or self-harm. So we're careful about that. But also in general, what we've seen is that sometimes when people are looking for answers in the near-death experiences or groups, or asking people, and they're doing it because they also are really hurting, and they're like, I need help, I'm suffering, is this a way out? And so I put that there to prevent some of the people who only are like on that edge and just looking for an excuse, because the experiencers, they say it's not a shortcut, it's not an excuse, it's not something they ever recommend. And so what we have seen from the experiencers, even who had their experience from an attempt like that, is that, no, we're here for a purpose. I know it's hard, but it's almost like when you're in school or a boot camp, it's hard on purpose. There's a reason, but we're not here to suffer. And so the point I make to people is that, life isn't always easy here, but it does have its beautiful moments. And if your life is just suffer, every day, if you're suffering over and over again, it's up to us to ask ourselves, with our own free will as souls, I wonder, is there something I can choose differently in my habits, in my thoughts, even the people I'm surrounded by? Perhaps I can use my own free agency and change things and co-create, because we're here to create. If our lives are not happy, we can always build better and healthier lives. And that ultimately is what our guides and angels and higher power wants for us. We have a rule for kindness. And even though, it's almost, it's, ironic to have a rule for kindness, but I do it because it's a reminder, like, this is about near-death experiences. And what do they all say? They all say we're here to love. So I want to, even if a lot of people on the internet are not accustomed to focusing on empathy or love or kindness, to practice it a little, at least in my group. I fully support all the authors and the people who are creating honestly and sincerely. There are scammers out there. There are people who are just, doing it for ego reasons or wrong reasons. But the people who are sharing and are opening their hearts and telling their stories, I'm all for that.
Sometimes when I've published an interview with someone, a near-death experiencer, I've been getting those remarks. Oh, he wrote a book. No wonder he says he's a near-death experiencer. So I've been like turned off sometimes by those comments.
I encourage everyone, if you're in the group and you see that, or even if you're in other groups, rather than like arguing with the person, or because some people will just argue with them and it just instigates it. But if you see that, if you click on it and choose report comment to admin, and that way it instantly alerts us, and we say, oh, I'm going to erase that. Or if they keep repeating that, we suspend them or abandon them if we have to, because
Okay.
I don't want that in the group either.
Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I am working on a book. I want to publish it definitely by the end of this year, 2024, if not even perhaps a few months out. I haven't ever published. I've only, and so I have a manuscript. I'm using Scrivener for writing, but I have to figure out the whole thing about e-publishing or whatnot. And I mean, ultimately, I have a few ideas, but this first one will be a memoir or an autobiography about my whole search for answers and everything I found. And then eventually I'm thinking about a book, on mediumship and what I've learned there, and then other ones after.
Well, I have a publishing company for independent authors. I've helped several NDEers write their books and publish. If you're interested, we can talk about it some other time. Mike Benavi, I don't know, the Soul Guide, he just published a book with me, and well, there are several others. Ned, thank you. This was really interesting, and I hope we can have another conversation soon. Take care.
All right, AJ.
This has been the A.J. Parr Spiritual Journalist Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe.